Okay, and Neptune rules back from behind Saturn is the Grim Reaper. So it's making, progressed moon is making a semi-square. Semi-squares are the same as squares. Don't ever, people say, oh, semi-squares are minor aspects. No, they're not. Minor baloney. They're just as powerful as anything. And when they happen at 45 degrees, it's semi-square. It's half of a square. It's a very hard aspect, okay? And so you've got everything happening here. Find the progressed moon, we go to the transit Saturn. It's in conjunction 4 degrees of Uranus, again setting off a perfect square to his natal Mars at 18 degrees Taurus, which is conjunct Mercury, at 20 degrees and Jupiter 23 of Taurus, but was in favorable trine to Venus, his mate. Interesting, it was in good aspect to his mate. She survived that. She was sitting next to him, but she survived it. Every chart using these examples were chosen at random. I've told you that many times. So if you go back and ask yourself, what's the astronomical likelihood that you could create these alignments like this? Almost impossible. You couldn't do it. Okay? And we've just done a couple charts here. We can keep doing this all day. Who's this one? This is Uncle Billy, died in a plane crash. We don't have to do this, but if you look, this is the 9th house in this chart. This is the 10th house in midheaven. Sun and the new moon fell exactly in Neptune. Okay, on top of Neptune in this chart, opposing Venus, right here. Okay, and squaring Saturn. See the cross? Okay, perfect cross, T-cross from that. Transit Saturn was in his house of death, coming up on Pluto, okay? And at 7 degrees of Cancer, it was, let me go, I'll do it this way. The new moon is exactly conjunct Billy's Neptune, making quincunx, 150 degree aspect to Uranus and the Sun, which is Yod. It's also an exact square to Saturn in the 12th house, and in opposition to Venus, which we just talked about. It makes a perfect T-square. By the way, the Yod is very fatalistic. Yod can be very fatalistic. Quincunx 150 degrees, don't ever minimize that. You will tend not to see that aspect unless you've worked with astrology a little while. The reason that it's one side of an opposition, 30 degrees of the office. So you got a planet down here, you got another one, not in opposition, but one sign off on either way. One sign is said to be the aspect of death, the other's of sickness. Why? Because if you do a chart and look at a Yod, I'll show you what happens. A Yod is basically when you have, looks like a Y. Let's say you have Mars here, and let's say you have the Sun here, and you have, let's just say Jupiter here. You've got a Yod. These are 30 degrees off of opposition. Okay, there's 30 degrees. If you did a chart, the 6th house aspect is down here. 6th house rules sickness. The 8th house rules death. This makes that Yod hit those 2 points. Do you see it? Am I making sense with you guys? Is it a little bit hard? So the reason a Yod is related to sickness and death is because it forms that exact same aspect as the 6th and 8th house meaning in your chart. Okay? All right, so we'll real quick here. Okay, so it's exactly, and his uncle, now here's a student, I was in the class, and Ron, if this works, my uncle died in a plane crash in a war, and we know exactly when it happened. Can you do a chart for it? And we did it, and this is what we ended up with, okay? A quincunx is, new moon is exactly conjunct his Neptune, making a quincunx 150 degree aspect to Uranus and the Sun. Sun is his life, Uranus is unexpected. Okay? It's also an exact square, 1 degree of square of Saturn in his 12th house, in opposition to Venus, forming a perfect T-cross. Neptune 24 Leo, Saturn 24 Scorpio, and Venus is 25 Aries. What are the odds you could get that there? I mean 24, 24, 24. Okay? Look at this, 25.
How did he die?
His plane crash.
Oh, plane
His
crash.
plane went down.
Oh.
Interesting
well,
enough, it went down in the water. Ah, what do you think, Neptune? You see that
Yeah.
in that aspect?
But the ninth house rules planes also, and the progressed moon.
Good for you, girl. This is all in the ninth
Ninth
house.
house, yeah, it's
Yeah.
all ninth house,
Exactly, good for you.
planes.
So there's so much here. The more you study astrology, the more you'll pick up meanings and other dimensions of understanding. But I just want you to see how accurate this is. I know I'm getting long-winded here. It's already 3 o'clock, but you know, I'm giving you something that if you take it with you and you use it and start to practice with it and learn. I told you, if you want to get this program that does all this for you, I'll help you with it. I'll give you an hour of my time, show you how to use it, make sure you understand it clearly, and that you do your own chart anytime and look at it and check it forward, backwards. And you can do all these movements within a minute. Just boom, hit the new moons ahead. Okay? When I do a chart for somebody, I do the progressed moon, normally I put it outside the chart. And I do the new moons. And I do the progressed moons. You all can calculate progressed moons and transit Saturn. You all know where transit Saturn is right now. It's about 1 degree Sag. You can find that out easy where it's at any day. And you can put it outside the chart. What happens is with this program, you can go from new moon to new moon to new moon to new moon by just clicking one button. And you can put it on the outside of your chart and write it out there for it and see exactly where it falls any moment. And that way you know what those new moons are for an entire year or 6 years if you want to go that far. All right, so let's see if we can go. Progressed moon is 12 degrees Sagittarius. The conjunct is natal Mars at 16 degrees. Notice Sagittarius aircraft, flying, all those things. Ex-airline hostess here, you know that.
Yeah, right.
So it's 16 degrees and exactly quincunx to natal Pluto at 13 degrees. Another quincunx, okay, at 13 degrees Cancer. Both afflictions can represent a violent Mars and a death Pluto. I mean, what's the odds these get there? Quincunx Pluto to natal Pluto at 13 degrees Cancer. Okay, that's its progressed moon. Conjunct is natal Mars. What's the odds you could put the progressed moon exactly conjunct Mars of violence? Okay? I mean, to put it quincunx to Pluto, which is the death planet, exactly at that time. He was born with that aspect, by the way. He was born with that Mars quincunx Pluto, which means that he was destined in a way to experience a violent death. Okay? Just by having that birth. But the tree forecasted. The root of the tree forecasted. This brought it about by triggering it. You see it? Okay, I know it's getting long with me. Fine transit Saturn, case finding conjunct Pluto at 13 degrees of Cancer on the cusp of his 8th house of death. And quincunx is natal Jupiter and Sun. Jupiter rules air flight and Sun the life. What's the odds you could put it there? Transit Saturn on the cusp of the 8th house of death, conjunct Pluto, the planet of death. What are the odds you could create a chart to make that happen? You couldn't do it. And add it to the other two factors that I just showed you. How do you think this happens? Just by a coincidence? Over and over? Every time I do a chart, I'm accurate? You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you something, folks. If you know what you got, if you learn this and study it and develop it, no one else knows it. I'm telling you. I said...
They will though.
Huh?
They will.
They will, yeah.
Yeah.
But you
You have
know...
to know the basics first.
Yeah, you know what though? It takes an astrologer to understand it. You're right. You know, that's why you got to get the basics too. I'm taking you on an
That's why you
advance.
have to get the basics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're starting out everything else before we know the basics.
Just go to Barbara here and get the
I'm still
basics.
one of those